Just a couple of seconds.
Quick request, because this will be on speaker view. Please
Müsait değil abi, şu Zoom
all mute
toplantısındayım şu
yourselves.
an.
Yeah,
Acil değil.
like Ismail hasn't done. You mute Ismail.
Bizim Emre'yi haberdar edebilir misiniz hocam ya?
Mute everyone. Mute everyone.
Again, quick request to everyone, please mute yourselves at all times and unmute yourselves when you speak, and then mute yourselves again when you're not speaking, because we'll have speaker view on, which means that when whoever's got their mic on, the camera will turn to them and the people will be able to see you pick your nose and pick your ears and all sorts of things, which we don't want. So make sure you're always muted, all right?
Okay, you can start, Eric. You're host again. So
Ivana, okay, good. Ivana, over to you. Let's get this show on the road.
Hi, hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Beyond the Balcony conversations with our collectives from all over Europe. And this morning, the road brings us to Turkey, to our friends and comrades from Istanbul, from Izmir, and I think many more to come from other parts of Turkey. To start on a very positive note, I would like to thank all of our comrades from Turkey for the hard work that they have done since the first foundation of first DSC. Now we have 3 of them, and CC, coordinating collective of DiEM25, just approved formation of provisional national collective for Turkey, and this is a very, very good news for Turkey, for all of us, for all of other countries which are non-EU countries as well. And today we would like to touch upon a couple of topics that are, of course, economical situation in Turkey and how much it is dependent on EU institutions or EMF, even though it's not an EU country, how Green New Deal can be translated to a local context in Turkey, how can Turkish currency, which is not euro, be used as an advantage in this economical change, and so on. But another point which is very important is that activism or opposing the regime in some countries is not walk in the park. So the safety of our comrades and DiEM members everywhere is the #1 priority for all of us. I would like to open the floor now to Yanis for a short presentation, and then we will have the round of your interventions. Please ask for the word in the chat. Thank you. Yanis, please.
Thank you, Ivana. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to our viewers, and in particular, of course, welcome to our comrades in Turkey, to the great DiEM family. Look, we've had many such teleconferences with comrades from different parts of Europe, from Spain, from Greece, from Britain, from Germany, France, and so on. This one is a very special one. It's a very special one for me personally. I'll speak from the heart. I'm sitting here in Greece at a time when Europe is burning, after 10 years of a crisis of Europe's democracy that has destroyed many illusions about European democracy, that has fueled the fires of nationalism, of racism, of Islamophobia, of anti-Semitism, of that's what happened in the 1930s. After 1929, this is what's happening in Europe after our generation's 1929, which took place in 2008 with the collapse again, Wall Street, just like in 1929. This was the catalyst that effectively triggered a massive crisis of capitalism, the result of which was policies that translate into socialism for the very few, the oligarchs, and stringent austerity and hardship for majorities. That created discontent. And whenever you have deflationary forces, discontent, the humiliation of the majority, you end up with nationalisms, toxic nationalisms, and racism and xenophobia. We saw how the disintegration of the European Union began. We had Brexit, and I mentioned Brexit because one of the manifestations of this process of disintegration, the process of fueling the fires of xenophobia, could be seen across Britain with those posters, those awful posters depicting thousands of Turks arriving in Britain through the European Union. This was part of the toxicity of the Brexit campaign, and the fact that Turks were depicted. I mean, it could have been Greeks, it could have been Egyptians, it could have been Serbs for that matter, right? But it just goes to show that when capitalism has a spasm and the oligarchy around the world combine forces against the majorities around the world, this is what happens. So while Europe is disintegrating, and there's no doubt that it is, this coronavirus crisis is simply intensifying a process that started a long time ago, back in 2008, perhaps. While walls are being built where there were none, existing walls are getting taller and they're being electrified. The situation between Greece and Turkey on the border, in Evros, in northern Greece, in western Turkey, is a source of major heartache for those of us who want to see the borders become just a line on the map instead of a militarized zone where misanthropy does its worst. In this environment, to be having this teleconference with our comrades from Izmir, from Istanbul, from other places in Turkey, gives me, it's one of those things that make life worth living again. And I'm not going to say more because I want to listen to our comrades from Turkey. So I reserve my right to comment at the end if I can. All I want to do is to express my gratitude to all of you from Turkey that at major cost to yourselves are doing what you're doing. And I want to also express my gratitude to Ivana, to all those of you on the SCC and working with our various networks across Europe have put this together. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanis. And now we will open the floor to you. I don't have any little blue hands on the right side. Yunus, great, go.
Thanks, Ivana. I took the liberty that you said no one was raising hands, and instead of not wasting any more time, maybe I thought I could start at the kickoff. First of all, this Beyond the Balkan session is fantastic, and congratulations. It's an historic day. It's a victory day for celebrations in Europe, and we are celebrating the European solidarity and Turkey in this video call with DiEM. And it's just the day after DiEM has now opened the process for Turkey national collective being designed. So I think we're truly grateful and we're very excited and delighted to have this spirit. My name is Yunus Erik, and I live in Bonn in Germany, but I'm part of the Izmir 1DSC. A couple of points I wanted to first of all raise, just also to echo what Yanis has mentioned, and just a personal story. Until 2015, in the first 6 years of my life in Germany, in Bonn, I was very comfortable until I saw the nightmares coming up, or really the horrifying dialogues on the Syriza and all these things, and started to be afraid that things are going worse. And I followed Yanis, especially after his resignation, that he's trying to build something different. And that's why I joined in on the 9th of February. And the moment I joined there, I said that there will be a moment to come to Turkey. And I'm glad that we made this now journey possible. That's my personal story. In an Izmir perspective, we started this journey starting from 20 May 2019. That was after the celebrations of the municipal elections in Turkey, where opposition, where left, where progressives was really taking over the country, at least at the metropolitan areas. And that was the most suitable moment. So with Ismail and moving to Cologne Assembly, I think we really made the ball rolling out. The efforts at the national level, I think that was very helpful. And the visit of Yanis and DiEM was very good. I'm very happy that as we now see this process now coming to a new level, Izmir has played a huge role. And on the European level, we also had this, let's say, a dialogue with the DSC, thematic DSC on solidarity. We have supported the blog on war, Syrian war. I think we have the translation into Turkish as well. So I think that was good examples. And I think after the PNC, things will roll out. Final comments, Progressive International. Turkey has a history. The foundations of the Republic in 1923 is having the motto of peace at home, peace in the world. And this was proved after 10 years, decades of war. There was regional pacts. Even Atatürk and Venizelos was proposed for Nobel Prize. I mean, it was an example that after war, you can still set up peace together. After the Second World War, especially with NATO, Turkey lost its origin of being a revolutionary country. So I think in this new world being built after Corona, after all these relations, it is really the time for Turkey to put its weight on the Progressive International to be the bridge to Middle East, Eurasia, Mediterranean, with its demography, with its dynamic country, and its really mission and history. So I'm grateful for all my comrades in Turkey joining this call. I'm very happy for CC and the rest of the DiEM community to give the hope that we need for. And thanks a lot.
Thank you, Yunus. Now the floor goes to Beral.
Do you hear me now? Okay. You know, I have been active in contemporary art and culture in Turkey since 1980s. So I will now, as a DiEM25 member, I would like to focus on the significance of the culture and art industry and its policy, as it is the most potential opening to a democratic Turkey. During early 2000, Istanbul was a culture and art hub in between two continents, Europe and Asia. This occurred because of the apparently expected positive developments regarding the political and economic image of Turkey. Turkey went through a period of relatively high growth, and we were told that structural reforms were made. But now we see that those reforms were not done at all. So Turkey currently does not seem to have a sustainable growth model in politics and economy. Actually, already during the so-called fabulous decade, 2000, from 2000 to 2010, it was apparent that the contemporary art productions, as well as popular event culture, could not reach large audiences due to the deficits in official and private sector policies in Turkey. In particular, the dissident content of visual art productions was making the public quite aware of the not so promising state of affairs, but it was only reaching a limited public. During that decade, the existing infrastructure with its unfinished modernist roots and underdeveloped postmodernist local structures corresponding to the adverse political and economic developments evolved primarily into a neo-capitalist culture industry program, serving mainly the needs of private sector or of creative industry investments and tourism. Considering the current geopolitical, economic, and human catastrophes and turmoil in the region, and the fundamentalist and neoliberalist positioning of the official cultural policies of the ruling power, we should rework on the current developments of contemporary art and cultural productions. For the sake of the existing art and culture scene, which is in fact currently the only free expression domain in Turkey, we have to find out the promising and constructive way to join the global and European Union cultural developments. During the cold winds, since almost 10 years, between European Union and Turkey, I could work with partners in several European Union capitals. I had the opportunity to justify the positive support and encouraging help of all my colleagues and of many art and culture institutions. And the cultural policies were very positive towards our art and culture scene, which was the only way to communicate in a democratic way. I trust this support, and I think it will be sustainable, and believe that through the establishment of DiEM25 in Turkey, we will be able to empower the benefits of art and culture towards the truth of democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression and creativity. I am very happy that we could be able to continue this collaboration, communication, and it will really the only way, the only horizon for Turkey.
Thank you very much, Beral, and thank you for bringing the topic of art and culture and the need for unified action. As a great writer would say, all the world is a stage, and the stage is an ultimate space of freedom which knows no borders. I really do hope that we will build bridges towards that. Now I give the floor to Ismail.
Sabah şerifleriniz hayırlı olsun. Tünaydınlar efendim. I'm Ismail Gönen. The journey of DiEM25 in Turkey, I think Yunus summarized, but it started after me attendance of DiEM25 Academy in Cologne. And then I invited the Turkish DiEMers for establishing a collective to come in and discuss how engage in prospering the Turkish democracy by DiEM25 values. This meeting was held with 3 members and end of February last year. And now we have many meetings, workshops, so on. Now here we are. And I want to talk about European Day with history of the books. You know, the books are very important for cultural accumulation. 25 centuries ago, there was a miracle in Athens, defense of Athens from Persian force, the feeling of the freedom. And That period belongs to Pericles, who is started to build Parthenon, which is still stand in Acropolis. In that cultivation period, all verbal epic poems of Homerus were published by the rulers. This is not enough, maybe not possible to explain of Athens miracles. On the Asian side, many philosophers like Pythagoras, Xenophanes, Anaxagoras escaped from Persian sovereignty and immigrated to Athens. One of sociological theory that many developments come from the Greek colonies in Asia Minor shows that the cultural clash was felt the most intense in this place. One of this philosopher was Anaxagoras, come from Clazomania. Present-day Urla is near the Smyrna. He published the first European book in 466 before centuries. The name was Über die Natur. As you might expect, the first book market of Europe was also established in Athens. Look at the fact that a poet was born at Clazomania in 1900s, and he also had to immigrate to Athens. His name is Georgios Seferis. He is the first Greek poet who received the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1963. I would like to share a part of his speech at the Swedish Academy. I belong to a small country, a rocky promontory in the Mediterranean. It has nothing to distinguish it but the effort of the people, the sea, and the lights of the sun. It's a small country, but its tradition is immense and has been handed down throughout the century without interruption. This tradition is characterized by love of the human, just as it's the norm. In our gradually shrinking world, everyone is need to all of the others. We must look for many men wherever we can find him. When on his way to Thebes, Oedipus encountered the Sphinx, his answer to his reeds was man. That simple word destroyed the monster, and we have many monsters to destroy. Let us think the answer of the Oedipus. In summary, I believe that year after year, this cultural clash allowed us an opportunity to create a new world, a new human society to destroy of the monster of the capitalism through to the DiEM25. And Viva Progressive International with freedom, equality, and fraternity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ismail. That was empowering. Now we have Daria, please. Maybe everybody could just say, introduce themselves, say where do you come from? Yeah.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Kalimera to the CC, to everybody. My name is Daria Kaladzou. I was born and raised in Greece. After falling in love with Istanbul during my Erasmus visit in 2014, I decided to move permanently here, and did so in 2018. And I'm a new DMer, by the way. First, I would like to thank you for taking the time and organizing these conversations for national strategies. All of us who are present today agree that DiEM25 has the solution and is the solution. We are all passionate about our activism. We are at a very critical and historical moment, not just here in Turkey, but I believe worldwide. We are facing a pandemic. The pandemic has proven that countries as entities have borders, but matters that actually do matter don't have borders. And there are rights inherent to all human beings and animals also, no matter which country they come from. So I believe that we as DiEM25 Turkey have to manifest how relative we are to the needs of our times. We need to be visible now more than ever, and by being more active, by organizing meetings and workshops with feminist groups, the LGBTQ community and labor unions. We need to show that we respect seek and promote diversity. We do have a vision and we need to manifest this. There are many people that are looking for DiEM25 at the moment in Turkey, but they are just not aware of its existence yet. So we have to increase our visibility. A political representation in the parliament might be impossible at the moment, but I do believe that this can and will change in the future. That's why we need to be active now, so we can have a strong collective then, I believe. And obviously there are perceptions that cannot be changed easily because they derive from the culture, geography, education and society people grew up in. Unfortunately, politics or being political is still seen just for the elite here. We need to change this. We also have to make sure that everybody understands and agrees with the fact that we all have the democratic right to express ourselves. We should not and must not hide. As a matter of fact, we have to show the importance of getting rid of any type of authoritarianism. And also, I'm about to finish. One of the pillars of our manifesto in transparency is transparency, what we are doing here today, having a conversation available to everybody anytime they want should not be the exception to the rule, but it should be the rule itself. Obviously, we have a quite challenging task regarding the points I and my fellows have mentioned. But I believe that if we work systematically and collectively, we can and will complete it beautifully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daria. Very nicely said. Now we are going to Murat. Murat, please.
Hello, does it sound okay? Perfect. I'm Murat from Izmir. Actually, I'm from Istanbul, but I live in Izmir, thanks to my wife. I've been involved with DiEM25 since 2 years. Then Ismail found me after he joined the academy in Köln, DiEM Academy in Köln. So we set up the first DSC in Istanbul, and then I moved to Izmir, and now we have 2 DSCs in Izmir, and our DSC is now one of the active DSCs with Mete. Maybe some of you know him, joined the Prague Assembly, and then we have been part of the visit of Yanis in December in Istanbul, etc. So we are trying to get more and more into the story. However, we have some issues. The problem I will be stating now is not because of DiEM or because of Turkey, but it is clear that we have some differences between Europe and Turkey. Personally, I'm not Mid-Eastern, more European. I live in the Asian side, but the total of Turkey is not that much European. So in the last year, we have been quite active. We had new members. Some of them we lost due to internal discussions, etc. But we can gain more people. However, it is still difficult for us to map the movement, the DiEM25 movement, to the Turkish dynamics. In this context, I would like to raise 2 subjects, and any comment is welcome about these, because we are dealing with people, with Turkish people, and they are asking us how these policies, the DiEM25 policies, principles, can be aligned with the Turkish playground. So I have 2 subjects due to the time constraint that I can raise now. First of them is the economy. Our economy is now in more crisis than the rest of the world. Our currency is destabilized. And in 2001, we had a similar case, and we solved it with IMF financing. Not the perfect solution, but it helped us in institutionalizing some of the government bodies and control the spending. However, in the next 20 years until now, these have been reversed or workarounds have been found, especially in the last decade. So now we have more debt and the income gap is much higher. In this context, I would like to ask how the European New Deal or the labor pillar of the progressive agenda can be mapped to the roadmap of DiEM25 in Turkey, as the first question. And secondly, the development of Turkey went from rural to urban in the last century. We had more and more farms, agriculture, etc. Now we have more cities and more crowded cities. In this regard, the Green New Deal of Europe and the transition to a green economy in the progressive agenda are our guidelines in the DiEM25 framework. So I would like to ask how these guidelines can be utilized in our policies for both urban areas and rural areas. I think some of them goes to Yanis because of his professional background, but any other comment is welcome. Thank you.
We will go to Yanis a little bit later. And now the floor goes to Evren.
Hi guys, do you hear me? Good. First, hallo zu meinen Freunden aus Deutschland, if anyone listening from Germany. If not, greetings to everyone out there who are hoping this time things might take a different turn. From here, where I sit in Istanbul, it certainly looks that way. And in that case, I'm not referring to small changes, small adjustment that the system have let us do, like for the past 30 years, 40 years, if you want to know. After the so-called golden years, I am here and I'm talking real change. That's why I joined the collective about a month ago. I was born in Germany, grew up in Izmir, but now reside here in Istanbul. I'm part of the Istanbul collective and I'm 44 years of age. I grew up in a society where politics and social engagement was altogether bad. You can relate that to the coup d'etat or the 1982 fascist Turkish constitution. So for us, all that was left was, consumerism, soccer. It was apoliticism, but then we recognized something was going terribly wrong on a global scale. To name a few: climate change, new forms of apartheid, superhuman babies engineered somewhere in the suburbs of Beijing. And I was, asking myself, okay, for the past 20 years, we were sort of fooled by liberal, modern, and allegedly democratic capitalist ideology, all fueled up and backed up with Fukuyama's End of the World. For us, the majority who were doing a little reading in philosophy, it's sort of rounded up to say, okay, that's all there is. And it's probably the ideology that has come to its end, and that's all there is. But what we have recognized is they have been blinded and wasn't all that good because the problems they remain the same. And at these days of Corona, what I had to bitterly find out that no one, not the United Nations, not the European community, no one was taking any steps on a global basis. Nothing holistically has been done. And I said to myself, okay, this is wrong. That's why I joined the collective. And I have hope because up to now, I have not been politically engaged. And if someone like me finally sees an opportunity, a crack in the walls, then I am certain a lot of more people do. I think we need to find them. We need to be more visible to people who think alike. Of course, the system with its super well-established institutions, they're gonna be fighting back because they got the guns, they got the money, but we might get the numbers. We might be lucky if we can reach out to people, to folks like me. Thanks, guys, for listening. I have a question for Yanis. I am also aware of a movement in the United States, the so-called movement reparations. It's the poverty that has been inherited or passed on from generation to generation to colored people because they couldn't get their wealth back due to slaverism. And yeah, over there, people are talking about reimbursing the poor or cleaning up the mess, because on the other hand, we're still dumping waste to Africa, and these things are intertwined. They walk hand in hand with each other. And on the other side, there's also a movement saying, okay, this is again white Anglo-Saxon, we're all like, we're bigger than they are. We're going to be taking care of the folks that cannot take care of themselves. So I'm a little split around that, and I'd like to understand your position on that. If you could lose a few words on that, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And good to see you here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. It's good to be here among wonderful people that have so much energy to spread the needed word about the different world that we want after the one that was not good anyway. Now we're going to Eric.
Cheers, Ivana. And thank you, everyone, for everything you've said so far. I know Ivana and Yanis definitely feel a lot of commonality with what you've been saying because of the part of the world that we're from. We're from the Balkans, and our history has been intertwined for hundreds of years. And in many ways, having a call with a country that is not in the European Union, indeed, for some people, they would even argue that it's not in Europe. I hear a lot of common experiences, a lot of common history, a lot of commonalities in general, and a lot of, shared interests and shared history and shared culture. Coming from Greece, a country where, we have our fights about where baklava is or who invented feta or where yogurt, the Greek yogurt is from, all these things. Nationalism has caused a lot of problems because it has forced us to put things into little small boxes with labels on them and having to decide what fits into that box and what doesn't. And there is nothing that can be in more than one box at the same time. It's Murat said that, there are parts of Turkey that are not very European, and we need to question that. We need to question, what does that mean, that statement? In Greece, when we do something really progressive or that is seen as really progressive, we say, giname Evropi, we've become Europe. We have this inferiority complex, of like, we're not quite good enough. We always look to the West for progress, for modernity, for what we should become. And I think DiEM needs to question that. It needs to seriously question that. It needs to question, what does it mean? What does Europe mean? What is this idea of Europe? If you look at its cultural and historical basis, you have a lot of Christianity in that mix. Does that mean that if somebody's not Christian, they cannot be European? And let's not even talk about, your entire country. Let's talk about people who already live in Europe. We have millions of people who live in Europe and they're not Christians. And I mean, I'm not Christian and I was born in Europe. I'm Greek, but I'm an atheist. Does that make me less European? Is Europe really about Christianity? Is it some kind of cultural heritage that we all share? Is it the heritage of the Greeks and the Romans? And what does that mean if it is that? Is it this common view of justice and of shared values and so on? And if so, in a globalized world, what does that even mean? Is there any country that is populated by people that don't believe in justice? Is that really an inherently European value? I don't think so. So this idea of what it means to be European, I think it's a majorly anti-colonial project that DiEM should be leading to rethink what it means to be European. And that also puts into major question the European Union itself. Because in a time when Europe is essentially represented by the European Union, what happens to all the countries that are not in the European Union or that are questioned by the powers that govern the European Union? Are they less European? Is my country, which is like the black sheep of Europe, less European because it doesn't aspire to the values set out by Brussels and the people that control the Brussels mechanism? Yeah, these are important questions. And I think having conversations with people from Turkey, for example, really helps us reframe that conversation. It's a conversation, I'm based in Brussels. It's a conversation that doesn't even exist. It's not even on the bloody radar here, you know, because it doesn't benefit those who control the current European project to have that conversation. So we need to question all these things. We need to question Europe. We need to question the European Union, because a lot of people, they want to portray the European Union as a champion of green policies or of justice or of clean medieval cities, you know, for people to visit and admire. But it's also the power behind a lot of concentration camps where people are suffering, a lot of deaths in the Mediterranean, a lot of exported suffering in other parts of the world so that Europe can look pristine. That's also the European Union. So I really, really deeply value this conversation. I thank you all for being part of it. And I think we need to continue it. And DiEM needs to be at the forefront of pushing exactly this debate. And I'm sorry if I went a bit over my time allocation.
Moderator is biased, because what you were saying is very much resonating with me and with this part of the world, or the Europe, who is, you know, we have for so long, we have this carrot in front of our noses, and it's justified with European values. So when we reach these European values, then we will be able to join European Union, which, as you said, has values as leaving migrants to drown in the Mediterranean. And now we are going to Metin.
Merhaba, Silav. Hello, everybody. I am Metin. I live in Istanbul. I would love to start my speech with commemorating Julian Assange and the Yazidi people who used to live in southeastern Anatolia and Mesopotamia. I want to tell the story of Europa, who is my grandmother, born in Anatolia. That lady who gave the name of our continent and civilization was the beautiful and young daughter of Phoenician king. Europa is a wide plain area for a point of view. Europe is a continent, a family, a mother that gave birth to civilization. We are all Europa's children, so we all seek the essential good things, such as truth. Now, I would like to talk about the Turkey Journal of DiEM25. We are here to open up pathways in the jungle, and it seems as we made it. After much consideration and several meetings, we realized an action plan, namely Pathway 2020. That's a route map which includes a lot of campaign, workshop, symposium focused on climate crisis, gender, migration, economy, politics, culture, and vision. We, as the Turkish DiEMers, would like to understand the society that we live in and make policies referring to the DiEM25 paradigm. Then we want to share this experience, DiEM25 and Progressive International Nets. We create working group in the subject of migration, Green New Deal, and we created online campaign demanding transparency and seeking of unsecured people while taking measures in COVID-19. We got 10,000 people's support. Nearly 80% of official DiEM25 website is translated into Turkish, and all of the contents will be available in Turkish soon. I would like to share a memory I used to ask this question in one of the DiEM workshops. What is the representative image of DiEM? One of the most striking answers was DiEM is the effect of Coriolis. Yes, our actions, especially in the times of crisis as now, has a cascading effect of our planet and all of the beings. The times of crisis is an opportunity for freedom. The crisis, which became more visible with COVID-19, may open the door of freedom if we struggle for it. Let's struggle now. It is time to action. The essence of world is action. We have idea, we have nets, and we have history to act. And we have awe to people, we owe truth to people. Socrates was the godfly of Athens. Now, DiEMers are the godflies of this world, especially in this post-truth era. Neoliberalism has already cut the link between reality and humanity. That's the genocide for humanity and ecocide for the earth. For a real life, we need reality, we need truth, and we will open up it for the sake of the godness of all. And the last words coming from Umberto Eco: wisdom is not breaking the idols. Wisdom is never creating those idols. With health, liberty, peace, solidarity, dance, and hope, because hope is the biggest fortune. Carpe diem.
Thank you, Metin. Thank you so much. Now we are going to Kerem. Kerem, can you unmute yourself? Or we can go to Mustafa now and come back to Kerem until he manages the sound. Okay, Mustafa, please.
Привет, добрый день. Hello. This is Mustafa Akınözerdem. I am a member of Istanbul DCS1. I was born in Izmir, grew up in Izmir. Actually, my grandparents were half from Saloniki, half from Krita. And I'm living in Istanbul for nearly 30 years now. I am having business here. Also, I'm a new DiEMer, joining this organization with enthusiasm and expectancy. I believe in humanity and human rights in this violent world, and espouse the progressive thoughts and actions to realize the identity of humans for a united, fair world. Europe is actually the home of democracy and justice. As for the individuals living in this part of the world, we can make this dream true and show to others that it is possible to join all people, live together with solidarity and peace. All little steps in all countries can make a big run all over the continent, which will definitely change the world. My only concern is the conflict of personal greeds and fractional reactions to prevent this action, as we can see in almost all leftists, politics and groups on the globe. To avoid this, we should be united in common international values and rights, make one common path, but let all national moves to step with their own spirits. Make one common path, but let all national moves to step with their own spirits by accepting democracy, transparency, equity, and solidarity. Every society knows best of its problems and solutions, weaknesses and powers. By putting all these national moves together in one common direction, we can reach the level of transnationalism, which we can replace with the recent way of wild capitalism, of taking improper advantages of all world population, what we call globalization. I also want to point out that our country has got ahead of first anti-imperialist war in 20th century as a national popular movement, and has formed a republic as a revolutionary change in all Muslim world and its wide territory by approaching modernity and modernistic rights and values. It was just after a world war among all nationalist expressions of that era. Today, we as Turkish DiEMers desire to get our position in a transnational movement of Europe like DiEM25. I really appreciate all efforts and works on this issue. I want to thank to everybody taking part of these efforts, especially the leading people who has taken this chance to us to be a part of this big dream to make it real, with solidarity and companionship. Carpe diem.
Thank you, Mustafa. We will try to connect with Kerem again. Kerem?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Great, go.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Sorry, my microphone locked in unmute, and then I changed it. So I'm coming from Izmir, quite new DiEM here, nearly 6 months, maybe more or less. And I want to add some my opinion about the Green New Deal and Turkey and European Union relationship. Today, some sectors are alleged to create added value in Turkey. For example, construction, only a business and employment opportunity for its yielding. There is no limit to the amount of money spent to sustain them. What about the result? The brand projects, which were initiated without considering the needs of the middle and the lower income groups, resulted in nearly 1 million building stocks as a result of the country's economic trouble. However, it stated that 8% of the total carbon dioxide released to the world is from concentrate production. When we evaluate the carbon dioxide emissions of the cement sector globally, it's seen that the European Union ranks third after China and US. Some of the resources required for a transformation towards the Green New Deal can be found on this basis by collecting from idle and dysfunctional sectors. The corona crisis and the economic consequences are not making such a wide transformation possible for now. Perhaps it is better to set off with the narrow, clean energy conversion. The most important task of those in power will be to eliminate the financial and legal constraints on development in this direction. On the other hand, it is clear that decision makers cannot implement a policy in which the public is not socially ready, so the public must reach a certain level of consciousness. Environmental problems should be constantly explained and disseminated through each channel. The roadmap should be disclosed to the public in a transparent manner. As a member of Izmir 1 DCG, I reiterate my commitment to provide active support and celebrate the 75th anniversary of the victory in Europe. Carpe diem. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerem. Now we will go to Beral.
Okay, I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, so I would like to say that all my family and the family of my husband are immigrants of end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century Turkey. So, I mean, immigration is a real important issue in our family life, because we really we really don't want to lose our memory. Memory is quite a delicate issue in Turkey, politically and socially and culturally, very delicate issue, because memory has been manipulated in 20th century so much that the young generation cannot see the true history of Turkey. So, and here I see that I'm the oldest person here, because end of this month I will be 78. So you can imagine that I have seen everything what happened in Turkey since 1945. So, I mean, it was really looking back to this history. I think I am a very experienced person in knowing what nationalism is, what racism is, etc., etc. And as I was in 1950 in German school, all my teachers came from Nazi Germany. So as a very young person, I also faced this what happened in Europe during the first half and the first half of the century. So now coming to today, I really agree all the ideas and all the manifestations of the speakers today, because they are really analyzing the situation in a very efficient way. And what I see during these Corona days is a political, economic, and social and cultural tragedy. So this was displayed through this coronavirus issue. And what is being offered to the society is opening of the malls, football games, and TV series, you know, looking to television. So, I mean, this is really a very, very difficult situation at the moment. So what DiEM25 has can do in this situation are two things which I would like to mention. First, we have to focus on erasure of the ghosts of 20th century ideologies and ways and strategies of acting, because this ghost is still very active in Turkey. So we have to erase this ghost. And the second issue is political and economic fields are extremely distancing from European Union and particularly from DiEM manifestations. They are extremely distancing. In the last days, there were interventions into the bank issues, etc. And we don't know what will happen with this dollar getting more and more difficult. So DiEM has the task to close this dark distance with efficient activities and dissemination strategies. Carpe diem.
Thank you, Beral. Now we will go to Nihat, who will speak in Turkish, and then I will ask Yunus to translate.
Merhaba herkese. Bundan 50-60 sene önce dünyada her ulusun, her devletin kendi problemleri çok fazla uluslararası ötesi değildi. Son 15-20 yıldır küresel kapitalizmin geldiği noktada dünyadaki tüm ulusların artık sorunları ortak oldu. Tam bu noktada Yanis Varoufakis'in başlatmış olduğu bu hareket uluslararası arenada tüm ilerici, demokrat, sosyalist kesimler için bence yeni bir ses olmuştur. Yeni bir güç kaynağı olmuştur. Türkiye, Orta Doğu, Avrupa, Asya, yani kıtaların tam ortasında olan bir devlet olarak içinde çok çeşitli etnik grupları da kapsayan bir ülke. O açıdan çok önemli bir ülke olarak kendi ülkemizi biz görüyoruz. Bu ülkede 100 yıl önce devrim savaşları yapıldı. Ulusal savaşlar yapıldı. 50 sonrası NATO'ya girmesiyle kazanılmış hakların çoğu elden gitti. Ama geldiğimiz noktada Türkiye'de büyük bir potansiyel olduğunu biz 60'lı yıllardaki o zamanki sol partiler olan özellikle Türkiye İşçi Partisi'nin çalışmalarından da görüyoruz. Bizler politik geçmişi olan birçok arkadaş Türkiye'de önemli çalışmalara imza atacağımızı da çok iyi biliyorum. Fazla uzatmayacağım. Daha sonra yazışmalarda zaten fikirlerimizi, projelerimizi de paylaşacağız. Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Carpe diem.
Thank you. Yunus, could you please summarize for us?
I'll try to summarize. He's Nihat Zoral. He's from Izmir 1DSC. He has highlighted that around 50, 60 years ago, the national fights were not that much internationalized. It was the uprising of the colonialist wars. But over the globalization around the last 20, 25 years, things have changed differently. It's all now under the global, let's say, powers. And under this condition, what DiEM has created is a hope for progressives, for the internationalists. Therefore, it's extremely valuable that this movement also comes to Turkey. And Turkey has also this history of 100 years ago. There was wars, nationalist wars. After the NATO membership, things have gone worse, or we lost all our revolutionary achievements, and we have lost all these resources. But especially also with the generation of 60s, there has been a lot of political movements from the left that has built us a huge, let's say, base to bring back this collective, inclusive, and more comradely across ethnicities, across cultures, which is living in Anatolia, and the crossing of the 3 continents of the world, that has a nice base for Turkey to be building the internationalist movement and this transnational movement, which is the new spirit. Therefore, he thinks this power, this potential is a huge offer from Turkey to DiEM, and that with this new moment, with this new momentum, we can be much more hopeful for the future. And he wants to continue over the correspondences in writing, so that he doesn't want to continue too much in the translations. Yeah, I try to do my best. I'm not a professional translator, but I hope it was clear. And if there's anything wrong, we can correct by communications. Yeah.
No, it is perfectly clear. That is positive message, and that is something that, like Beral was saying, this historical revisionism that is happening all over on different levels is just helping nationalists all over to flourish, you know, and to unite. And what we should do is act now. Having said that, I would like to go now to Yanis, who will
I think Sakin has asked for...
Okay, let's go to Sakin and then to Yanis, so we can have after you another round of interventions to be focused more on what's next. What are we going to do in Turkey? So now we are going to Sakin. Sakin? You're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
The host can unmute directly.
Davide?
Davide, can you do it?
It's Eric who's the host.
Doesn't allow me, unfortunately.
The host can.
I'm clicking on unmute, but it's not working for a second.
Maybe it's frozen. So
anyway, no.
Speak
here
now.
It is.
Sakin, speak. Sakin?
Kürşat hocam, konuşabilirsin. Seni dinliyoruz. We can listen to you, Kürşat. He's frozen.
He's frozen. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay. Tekin diye bahsediyorum. Özür dilerim.
He's back.
Hola.
He's back. Yeah. Devam et.
Evet. I'm Kürşat Oral. I'm living in Istanbul. And I'm with DiEM approximately since 1 year. Dear Yanis and all friends, I have a short sentence for you today to share my feelings only. All are said, it was great. No doubt that nowadays the world is practicing a new era. The world is, and additional to this, angry with human being. I think it is a great collective to get all nations together. It can be easily seen that people need a new angle, and so in Turkey. I'm happy to be with this union. I have a great hope about our progressive movement, and I want to thank you all.
Thank you. Now we are going back to Yanis and for him to answer a couple of questions that he received, and then we will go back to you so we can make some action points for Turkey. Yanis, please.
Well, thank you, Vanna. I'm very glad that Beral began the conversation by mentioning the importance of art and culture, because for us in DiEM25, we don't believe in socialist realism. We don't believe in using art as an instrument for spreading an existing agenda. We want to be able to see the world through the eye of the artist, the playwright, the cinematographer, and therefore to inform our policy agenda on what it should be before we also use art in order to propagate our ideas. So the DiEM25 is founded on a dialectical relationship between art and politics. Art is not there to serve politics. It is to inform politics and to inform economics. Let me give you an example that I think I've used before, but I think it's always useful. If you take, I don't have in my pockets any euros now, but if you take a €5 note or a €10 note or a €20 note out and you look at it, you'll see these bridges and arches. I made a case that aesthetics really exposes the reality of our monetary system. The point being that these arches and these bridges don't exist. They don't exist. They are nowhere. They are not real. They are not sketches of some actual arch or bridge. So you have Europe, in which you have all this culture, from the Colosseum to the great cathedrals of Germany, the Acropolis, the wonderful mosques in Spain. Nothing, zero. We had to create fake images of non-existing monuments. I think that tells the whole story. If you really want to understand the euro crisis, the monetary crisis, you start from that. It tells you everything you need to know. And also the symbolism of it all. The beginnings of the euro, which is, of course, the ground zero of the crisis now. If Europe is disintegrating, the European Union is disintegrating, not Europe, but the European Union is disintegrating. It's because of the monetary architecture, which is creating huge austerity across Europe. It all began, it began, anyway, I'm not going to go to the very roots of the history, but there was an important moment in history. It happened in 1978. I think it was the autumn of 1978. And that's, if you want to establish the birth of the euro, or the birth of the process that led to the euro, that you'll find that it happened in the German city of Aachen in the fall of 1978. That's when the president of France at the time, Giscard d'Estaing, and the chancellor of Germany at the time, Helmut Schmidt, got together to sign they reached an agreement for the so-called European monetary system. It was a terrible system. It didn't do well, but its failure led to the creation of the euro. It was the beginning of the euro. Now, why am I blending this with art, culture, what Beral was saying, the sketches on the euro? Because what is fascinating is that at the end of a long day of negotiations between the French president and the German chancellor at the time in Aachen, once they shook hands and they agreed that they would set up the European monetary system that in the end gave birth to the euro. At the end of the day, they took a symbolic walk along Aachen. Do you know this story? Do people know this story? And they went to the Aachen Cathedral, where the remains of Charlemagne are kept. And they sought his blessing because they considered what they were doing to be the equivalent of reestablishing the empire of Charlemagne, of reuniting Europe. And of course, Charlemagne has gone down in history as the king who united the Christians against the Muslims. So this is alluding to what Eric was saying before, that the European Union has always had this self-conception of being in juxtaposition to Islam. Now, we do not want in DiEM25 to do that which the designers of the euro banknotes did, to annul history, because this is what the banknotes of the euro do. They just take history and throw it in the bin and replace the images of real cultural monuments, of real European art, with rubbish that doesn't exist, some third-rate designers, arches and bridges. We don't want to do that. We do not want to annul the history of the conflict between Christianity and Islam, the Ottoman Empire reaching the gates of Vienna. These are all important historical events that shape our history, the history of Turkey, the history of Europe, the history of Austria, of Greece, and so on. We are not cultural nihilists. We're not globalists in that sense, end of history, Fukuyama rubbish, that it's all finished now. We are all, just a big shopping mall in which all that matters is iPods and apps. We take to heart our history. We explore it. We build on it. We overcome it. So I think it was Yanis who mentioned, or someone mentioned, I can't remember who exactly. Or was it Ismail? It was Ismail. The Persian Wars. Whenever I get together with somebody from Iran, especially intellectuals from Iran, and there's some brilliant intellectuals coming out of Iran, we are as one, because the Persian Wars unite us, they don't divide us. The culture of Persia and the culture of Greece are as one because of the Persian Wars. So instead of understanding Europe as a product of a clash between Christians and Muslims, what we at DiEM want to do is we want to understand our unity as a result of those clashes, because nothing unites more than a history of clashes. If you look at Germany and France, the beauty of the lack of a border between France and Germany is the result of 200 years of wars. The overcoming of these clashes is what creates unity. And this is what DiEM25 wants to do at a time when the coronavirus is turbocharging, it is reinforcing a capitalist crisis that creates walls and divisions. So the virus is neither here nor there. It simply exacerbated the process that was happening before that. It gives us an opportunity to demand that we don't go back to normality, because normality sucks. That the normality we had before the coronavirus was not worth living. It was a dystopia. And we want to use that experience, that opportunity, as a portal so that we can go through it to a different world. And this is what we are about. Okay, so this is, if you want, my introduction. It's the reason why we're together. But at the same time, in order to appeal to people out there, we have to be practical. We need to go from the philosophical, ideological bonds that bring us together to a programmatic language that appeals to taxi drivers out there, to people working in factories, in shops, in the domestic arena, in the caring sector, in hospitals, and so on. And I think that we're not going to do this today. Today's an inaugural get-together between members of the coordinating collective, people, comrades from Turkey, those who are watching us from different parts of Europe. We're just kicking off today. But I think that it is important that now you're going to have a national collective, a provisional national collective, leading to a proper national collective, we hope very soon. I think you should work very hard on coming up with a framework of thinking for 4 or 5 very specific things. A framework that will then be discussed with the rest of the movement across Europe, coming to a common position, because it's not enough to have a transnational agenda for Europe as a whole, for the world through the Progressive International. It's important to also be able to answer questions about Turkey, about Izmir, about Istanbul, about Ankara, about Adana, about, just, specific areas. Okay, so it is important that we who don't live in Turkey and who do not understand Turkey like you, get from you a briefing on the state of the Turkish economy today. Some ideas, let me share with you. So for instance, you mentioned the 2001 IMF bailout of Turkey and how it, the pros and cons of it. Well, looking at the data over the last few years, Turkey has been living on the kindness of foreign capitalists, because you need to stabilize the Turkish economy. You have a trade deficit, you need a constant influx of capital coming from abroad. So in a sense, the government is completely hamstrung by that, while trying to keep interest rates down. And that has an impact on the policies implemented within Turkey, the policies of austerity for the many, and a degree of largesse for the foreign capitalists who come in, and the local oligarchy that associates with them. We need a briefing on this. We need, DiEM25 Turkey to come up with, doesn't have to be 20 pages, 50 pages, 2 pages, 3 pages. What is the situation? What is our analysis as DiEM regarding the state of Turkish political economy? Point number 1. Point number 2, you need to take apart our Green New Deal for Europe and see how that, which bits of it pertain to Turkey, which bits you can use in order to push forward ideas about what can be done in Turkey. So for instance, the public financial instruments that we're describing, the European Investment Bank and so on, to what can be done to emulate all that in Turkey. So for instance, you can, you can look at what exists in terms of developmental funding in Turkey. Is there a development bank? Is there more than one? Do we need a new public development bank in Turkey that can work together with the Central Bank of Turkey and in association with the European Investment Bank and the European Central Bank? So, take the Green New Deal, okay, which was not written with Turkey in mind, and tell us and tell yourselves, so we can all tell the world, which parts of it pertain to apply to Turkey, which parts can be improved, because whatever you do will not be just for Turkey. We will need to incorporate that in the Green New Deal for Europe. That's second. Third, oil and gas extraction. As DiEMers, we have a very simple view. Fossil fuels must stay inside the earth. Here in Greece, Mera25, DiEM's party in parliament, is the only party that is struggling to end oil and gas exploration in Greece, on land, in the Aegean, in the Eastern Mediterranean. And that connects very well, very closely with peace in the Eastern Mediterranean, peace in the Aegean. Because Exxon, Mobil, Total, and the rest are setting the scene for putting us against you, Greece against Turkey, bringing in Israel and Netanyahu in a toxic alliance between Donald Trump, Exxon, Total, and the nationalists who are in government in our countries. And you see now this ridiculous situation where, Greece, Cyprus, and Israel are binding together to serve the interests of Exxon across the Mediterranean. And the Turkish government is trying to find a kind of alliance with the Libyan non-government, or failed government, or whatever you may call the government in Tripoli now, to create a counter alliance in order to exploit fossil fuels that should never be exploited by anyone. Instead of turning the Aegean, the Mediterranean, into seas of peace and joint green prosperity. Now, this is a remarkable opportunity for DiEM to come up with a policy for green energy, a green energy union, including Turkey, across Europe, maybe include the rest of the Middle East as well, why not? To stop this madness whereby we are facing a serious possibility of war. Over what? Over things we shouldn't want. It's not even wealth, it's negative wealth. We are going to be fighting over things that we shouldn't want. There can be no greater irrationality than that. And no one can project that better than DiEM. And DiEM Turkey must be a central part to that. Migration. We cannot avoid talking about migration because Turkey already is overburdened with millions of refugees, of migrants, call them whatever it is you want. People that fled their countries for whatever reason, either fleeing from bullets or from poverty or from whatever, from climate change, whatever. Europe, the European Union, not Europe, has a misanthropic policy on this. The agreement between the European Union and the Turkish government is a shameful agreement that must end and which must be replaced by a humanist approach to the issue. Piling up migrants in Lesbos or in Turkey or in Lampedusa is an act of violence against humanity by all our governments. And if DiEM doesn't have a position on that, we don't deserve to exist. I mentioned very briefly the Middle East. Turkey is there with one foot in Europe, one foot in the Middle East. We have Syria, we have Iraq, we have this field of pain created by the West. DiEM Turkey and DiEM overall must, at least ideally, aim towards spreading DiEM beyond the borders of Turkey. I would love to live to see the day when we help create a democracy in the Middle East movement that goes all the way to Yemen and beyond. Because if we don't do it, I don't know who else will. But that can be included as part of our agenda for the Progressive International, which, as you know, is being launched again, launched properly beginning on Monday. We have a lot of work to do, but I believe that we have the right program, the right philosophy, and we are completely unencumbered by any ties to vested interests that conspire so successfully to turn people against each other so as to maximize the returns of particular oligarchic capital interests. I think I've said enough.
Thank you, Yanis. Now we will go to other CC members, Fotini and Rosanna. I will give the floor to Fotini first.
Thank you, Ivana. Arkadaşlar merhaba. Bu toplantıda yüzünden çok mutluyum. So I'm Fotini. I'm a member of the CC. I am also an elected MP of DiEM25, the electoral wing of DiEM25 in Greece. First of all, I'm really grateful being part of this meeting today, a historical meeting. 3 points, because I agree with all of you. You really touched my soul today. I would like to thank you for all your hard work leading to this meeting. Indeed, and I agree with what Mustafa wrote on the chat, we should separate, and it's a notion we all share. We should always separate Europe from the EU. Additionally, I agree with Yanis's proposals. We have a lot of work to do, but the moment we are living in is a historical one, and we should really use it in order to move forward. And closing Turkey, indeed, because of its strategical and position and its history, should and will play, I think, an important role in the Progressive International. And I'm really looking forward to working with you any way I can and help any way I can in order to move forward and build a really strong movement in Turkey. Carpe diem.
Thanks, Fotini. And now we will go to Rosanna. We have another half an hour, so please let's move towards these points which will lead us forward in Turkey. Rosanna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you all for being here today. Hi, I'm Rosanna. I'm also a CC member, quite new as Fotini, and I live in Germany. And yes, as Yanis and Fotini already answered some of your questions, I also want to point out that the strength of DiEM is to be a transnational network, that we have DSCs, active DSCs in every part of Europe and beyond. And so it's like our strengths would be to also organize coordinated transnational actions, even if you suffer in Turkey from like your governments, your democratic restrictions and so on. We can support you as DSCs in other countries. We can do coordinated actions in front of embassies and so on. If you have an idea about it. And also we had this idea in Germany, and we reached out to Yunus already to building up a DSC council to just get the communication in between the DSCs more flowing, and to coordinate ourselves better and to get better organized, to get to know each other and get to know what other DSCs are doing in other countries. I think it's very important to exchange our best practices, exchange our ideas, and also regarding the Green New Deal for Europe, how to like downscale it to your own city. There are many cities who already did it, and they build up local groups, and maybe you could also reach out to the European team of the Green New Deal. They're always looking for people who are working together with them and who like support them, but also to downscale it to their own cities and countries. And yes, so I hope we can work on that in the future. And yes, but I also am really happily and surprised because half a year ago I visited you in Istanbul. I think it was Thailand and Yusuf and Ismail was also there. It was really nice to get in touch with you, and maybe you can also like reach out to other DSCs, but also online everything is possible. So yeah, happy to see you all here.
Thank you, Rosanna. Of course, there are lots of opportunities for our local collectives and members to interact. We have many ways to do that. And now we are going to Yunus. Yunus, please.
So I think this is the second round. That's really good to have this feedbacks from our colleagues and comrades from CC. And I'm really happy with the diversity and the enthusiasm of all my comrades in Turkey. This reflects, I think, the potential that we are all talking about. It's very, very helpful, this 5 points from Yanis. I think that is also giving us the hope that we could put up a concrete action plan that gives us a clear roadmap so that we could expect what to achieve by the end of the year, by the next year, and connect ourselves especially to this inside the debates inside DiEM, but also in the Progressive International. That's what I'm achieving as the message. I'd like to add 2 points or 3 points. First of all, during this journey of DiEM, I would like to warmly and with humbly recall the contributions from several individuals that do not join here for several reasons, or overlapping. But we had Elif Shafak at the first CC, which was an important also a figure in developing the message. We had Ece, she's still involved in all these efforts. Deniz Özkan, for example, was joining the European Parliament election in the DiEM list. Again, an important moment where we could see the Turkish diaspora in European nations. That should be something that we should build upon, and that comes to my 2 additional points to Yanis' points. First of all, again, to reach out to the progressive Turkish diaspora in Europe, that they should connect to the DSCs, they should connect to their NCs, and we should encourage them, we should make them known that there is something going on in Turkey, so that we collectively act as a European, progressive European. I'm confident that there will be a lot of new comrades joining us, both in Europe and in Turkey, if we can make this bridge. The second point that should be included in our agenda is that as MERA has a unique power, which is a 9-member in the parliament, which doesn't exist in any other part of the European Parliament, which is a huge different momentum, which is showing its impact, how you can change things also at the government or governance level. Turkey has a similar position, which is more than half of the metropolitan municipalities are now governed by progressive forces. More than 60% of the Turkish population, more than 70% of Turkish economy is under the progressive municipalities, which they are celebrating their first year, but they're also having huge troubles. And we should also consider them as the next wave of those that we should be connecting ourselves, so that the local economy, the local interaction, especially in this moment of cross-border relations, when technology, when societies are so much closer to each other, we should use them. Yes, we don't have the government. I recall Derya, she was referring that maybe we will never have a national members of parliament. Maybe, well, sometime in future, but we already have governments at the local level. So let's use them. And we know they're also struggling, and their efforts a lot. They're putting a lot to connect to their parts in the world, across the world, and in Europe. So I think we should put them also into our targets, to the provisional agenda, also the national agenda, that gives us a huge power that doesn't exist in DiEM in the rest of Europe. In most of the cases, most of the DiEMers in Europe are still in the opposition. They don't have this governing power yet. Very few there are, but not as much as the one in the Turkey has in the metropolitan government. So we should also have a lot of lessons learned. And the third point, I think Murat raised this in his remarks, but he didn't mention too much, but this is a discussion we're having in Izmir, the urban-rural bridge, the part of the Green New Deal that we have to bring together. This has been in the roots of Turkish Republic when we were building the village institutes, that is now becoming more and more essential, how to make this rural side and urban side that helps each other, rather than this monopoly of mistakes of a 20th century oil-dependent urbanization that is having a different alternative. This has been practiced in Turkey. We should reinvent it, and we should bring this to the agenda of DiEM, to the rest of Europe as well. So these are my humble proposals on the way forward, and I think this is now enriching us. This discussion and the way forward will be really interesting. Thanks a lot. Carpe diem. Efaristo and vielen Dank.
Thank you, Yunus. Now we have Evren.
Thanks again for giving me the opportunity to talk on a second round. Coming back to what Yanis was talking about, I would like to volunteer to prepare 2, maybe 3 pages in terms of what the economy in Turkey today is and its social implications. I would get that document into circulation over my DSC coordinators, Metin and Ismail, to have also their inputs as well as to have the inputs of Izmir, if that's okay with you guys. No rejection, so I am taking that for granted and okay. Another thing, I also coming back to Yanis's comment on how to reach the regular people, the regular folks. I used to run a company, 500 people, big company. Used to be the general manager, and talking to the operators, the workers. I, of course, as probably many of you did already, had to find out that talking about beliefs and values doesn't really get them going. What we need to have is that, you know, it's not easy to touch base with these people. You need to be talking in their language in order to get their attention. And one thing I found out that is very useful in that manner is to do it over art, again, over books that are easy to read. Like, just to give you one example, it's Orhan Kemal, who has written marvelous books about people who moved from Anatolia to Istanbul and struggles with poverty. That's something they can relate to, as well as movies that have been shot in Turkey back 2000 and 2010, also talking about poverty. So my point, I guess, is the way we talk to each other does not maybe always be the right way to talk people if you go in the majority of the folks you want to reach. Because they struggle with totally different things. That's it for time being. Thanks for listening.
You're absolutely right, Evren. Thank you for that. And this is something that we need to do also in our local environments, and, you know, pick an issue or a problem that you have in your neighborhood, your city or region, and approach people on the ground with the real problems which can be fixed by our policies, but in a language, in a narrative that is understandable. Of course, that's the main issue that we need to work on. And thank you for your proactivity and taking the task in live, because this is the proactivity that we need. This is, you know, what needs to be done. Aha, this is it. Check. Who is going to do that? Check. Now let's go and change Europe, because this is urgently needed now. I would like to go now to Beral again, and please think of your last interventions as we are approaching the end. Beral?
Beren Hocam, sesiniz kapalı. Sesinizi açabilir misiniz?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, third time, to speak. And I really appreciate what Yanis Varoufakis was talking about the Mediterranean region, which, despite all destructions, wars, ecological destructions, touristic and construction, economy, again, and Mediterranean region is still the most interesting, the most inspiring, and the most valuable region in the world, with its deep memory of culture. And I mean, it could be a model for the Green Deal. It should be a model, but we know that Turkey's shores on the Aegean and on the Mediterranean are still under the threat of this, for example, nuclear stations or oil or whatever the economy is desiring to put onto the shoulders of the people. So I think, first of all, we have to concentrate as DiEM Turkey on the healing of this problem in the Mediterranean. And all of our neighbors should consider that Turkey is 83 million people. This is a huge, big society, mass of people with very different level of knowledge, education, character, and of course, the background. And 20 million in Turkey is under the poverty level. So, and 15 million young generation people with underdeveloped education. So it is a big task in front of DiEM Turkey to deal with these problems. I would think that we have to be very creative and try to make very specific projects, very specific about very specific problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Beral. I will just briefly go back to Yanis. He has a point on the process, something, and then Ismail.
Having spoken generally about our ideology, about our tasks, I want to speak very briefly about process. Our experience as DMS is that often there is a problem. I'm not talking about DiEM Turkey now, but generally sharing the experience from other national collectives in bringing together the wonderful ideas and proposals of different members and different DSEs. It is the job of the PNC that is coming together to create a network amongst all of you members in DiEM Turkey, where everybody feels that they have access to the collective thinking and planning and writing of documents. Nobody should be left outside. Often, you see, all movements suffer from a common problem. All movements, not just DiEM. When we create a voluntary network of activists, usually the ones who have more time and stronger opinions, they receive more airtime. That doesn't mean that their ideas are always better than those who have less time, or they are not as strong-willed about their ideas. So isigoria, the ancient Greek word, which means that opinions should be opinions, proposals, opinions, views, suggestions should be judged on their merits, and not on the basis of who says them or how powerfully they're being canvassed. Demands that we establish a comradely code of conduct, a comradely framework where opinions rise to the top on the basis of their merit, not on the basis of how much time people have to push for them, how they elbow their way into the fray. I'm saying this before any of this happens because it has happened elsewhere in DiEM, and it is important that we establish a code of conduct within us and a process that allows for unity and harmony between us, between Izmir and Istanbul and Ankara and so on and so forth, and also a good working relationship between the PNC and the CC, as well as the other parts of DiEM25. So it's important to remember that process matters. The means, the ends do not justify the means taint the ends. Let's be clear on that as a progressive democratic movement that practices internal democracy, where the internal democracy doesn't just mean that everybody speaks and everybody It's not just that, it's a question of ensuring that opinions and proposals rise to the top on the basis of their merit.
Yes, couldn't agree more that this was important to be said here. Ismail.
Hi again, I want to share about this Green New Deal working group in about maybe last 2 months. We focus on these topics, but as Yanis Varoufakis explained, that without PNC formation, we couldn't start up to create or something. We face of this problem also Turkish manifesto drafting also. Now I think very close time later we will launching PNC, and then we will start. We will build formation of Turkish network in as soon as possible, and I want to share something one more about immigration topic also. We have immigration working group sharing ideas with the thematic DSCG also, but as I understood, without stop deal, Turkish shaming deal, the next step we have to focus more about later how can manage the international peaceful world. I think we will focus on this topic later. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. And after coronavirus, this dystopia, I will be in Athens. See you.
Thank you. Yes, we are all looking forward to being able to move around and to be able to gather again. I don't have anyone else who would like to say something. We are having a regular call, which is going to be a monthly call between the PNC and the CC. So I am also looking forward to continue all of these conversations, to help you in any way that you need the Coordinating Collective help in building the PNC. Also, all of the tools of the network that we already have, DSCs that are here and keen to collaborate on local actions that can be translated to international level and vice versa. So I'm really very happy that we started this wave, and keep up the good work. Carpe diem, comrades.
Carpe diem.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Carpe diem.
See you soon.
See you soon.